Kelly Davis, your host of the Untold Miracles podcast, and today I am so excited. We have a very special guest on the show. He's a New York Times bestselling author, lifestyle entrepreneur, high-performance business coach, keynote speaker, former professional football player, host of one of the top podcasts in the world, School of Greatness, and the host of a new show on Facebook Watch, Breakthrough with Lewis Howes. Mr. Lewis Howes, welcome to the podcast.
What up?
Hey, I'm so excited for your time today, but before we start, I just want to say thank you for your inspiration for launching this podcast. Back on October 20th, 2016, I was reading your book, School of Greatness, and in one chapter, you asked the reader to write down a personal statement plan with our vision and our goal, and that day I wrote down, I will start a celebrity podcast. And thanks to you, the Untold Miracles podcast exists today, but I really don't think it would if I didn't read your book or listen to your podcast. So I just want to thank you so much for helping make that dream a reality.
Amazing. I appreciate it.
It is pretty cool. I am so grateful for you. And also when I reached out to you with a couple questions of, hey, I don't know like where I should host this and what kind of equipment to use, you always responded quickly to help me out with your wisdom and advice. And so anyway, it's really amazing that I get to have your time today. So thanks for being here.
Well, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
So on this podcast, Lewis, we talk about miracles. And I know from reading your books, School of Greatness, The Mask of Masculinity, and The Millionaire Morning, you've experienced some pretty big miracles in your life. And I want to start with your childhood. You had a learning disability, you couldn't read well, you were bullied, your brother went to prison, you were sexually abused. Tell our listeners how you were able to survive your childhood, and were there any miracles involved with you doing so?
Yeah, I think there was miracles in the fact that I wouldn't say I was depressed as a kid. I think I had a lot of depressed thoughts and insecure, uncertain, anxious thoughts. And the more I was exposed to a different way of thinking, I eventually learned how to train my thoughts and the way I think and the way I process emotions. That's when everything started to change.
Is there one person that comes to mind that was a really big kind of miracle worker for you when you were in junior high and high school and elementary?
I think it was a combination of people. I had some great coaches that I would kind of latch on to during those seasons, those sports seasons, and just pick up any little wisdom nuggets I could from them. And then if there was a teacher that would teach me something or that I thought was positive, I would learn from them. It was mostly coaches that were influential. Obviously, my parents were as well, but I was also dealing with different, emotional stress from them going through divorce and other things happening in the family that I think I had some resentments towards them also. But it was, honestly, like a lot of sports movies. I would just watch sports movies and hear these speeches and hear these examples of how to achieve your dreams and how to think differently and live differently. And I would see people achieving certain things. And I was like, man, that's something I want to do. I want to start achieving something for my life and having a goal to work towards and putting in the dedication and the work consistently. And I think making the decision, the conscious decision to think a certain way is a miracle in itself. And the decision to show up on a daily basis to pursue the life you want to live is a miracle. It's not like it's a moment that, this was a miracle. It's the year of hard work, the season of hard work, the 10-year journey to discovering something about yourself. That process is the miracle over just a moment.
So, Lewis, after high school, you had a very successful college career. You broke a record with 17 passes and 418 yards in one game. And you went on to play professional football in the Arena Football League until you had a career-ending injury where you shattered your wrist. And you found yourself living on your sister's couch for a year and a half. And I want to know if there were any miracles involved in you getting off that couch to creating a multi-million-dollar online media company to now advising multi-billion-dollar brands.
Again, it was like a process. It was a year and a half of not being depressed, but having depressed thoughts, having negative, uncertain, anxious thoughts that dictated my actions. And when I started to reach out and find mentors and find information and and start applying that information, one of the biggest things is just the application of information and coaching. And as an athlete, I'm very good at applying and practicing what I'm learning, because that's all we do in sports. And so when I got done playing sports, I said, how can I set up my life to be like a game where I find coaches that can teach me something, or I find information that I can use to learn, and then practice it over and over and over again until I master a certain skill. So for that year and a half, I was salsa dancing 3-4 times a week to learn that, because I had a fear of dancing. So I said, I'm going to overcome my fears during this time. And so that was one of them, fear of dancing.
I love it.
I had a fear of public speaking. So I went to a public speaking workshop every single week for a year and practiced overcoming my fear of speaking in front of a group.
And now you're getting paid over $25,000 for speaking engagements, which is super cool.
Yeah, but it all started because I realized what my fears were. And I had the awareness to say, okay, I no longer want my fears to dictate the way I feel. And when I started to master my fears, my feelings started to change as well. And my thoughts started to change about the way I thought about myself. And that allowed me to have more confident action taking towards a more fulfilling life. And so again, I think the miracle was probably me recognizing and having the awareness that I'm living in a lot of fear and I don't want to live that way anymore. And when I started to put myself into the fear, it's really challenging to put ourselves into something that we're completely terrified of. But the more I did that, the more comfortable I became with fear in general and the uncertain and the unknown. And that ability to recognize fear and the ability to recognize my weaknesses and throw myself into the uncertainty, I would say that's the miracle, because it allowed me to overcome challenges along the way.
Do you remember if there was a specific moment when you were on that couch and you were broke and living with your sister? Was there a specific moment where this is not how my life is going to go, or was it just a process?
Yeah, it was a moment of a year and a half in. My sister said, I think it's time you get a job and start paying rent, right? Because she was very kind and just let me mooch off of her for a year and a half and do nothing essentially. I said, okay. I started building relationships on LinkedIn. I started kind of building some credibility at this time. I was meeting people, I was learning stuff, but I wasn't applying it to make money yet. And I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to apply for a job. I think I have the confidence now. I've got this public speaking thing down. I've been building my network. I've learned about online marketing. I think I can go and get a sports marketing job pretty easily. And so I started applying for these. My confidence grew because I started applying my fears and overcoming them. And I went on Craigslist and found these sports marketing jobs in Columbus, Ohio online. And I applied for some of them, and I got an interview for one of them at this firm that I was like, okay, if I was going to get a job, this could be a place I could see myself working at and thriving in. And I got the interview. They saw my resume. They asked me to come in for the interview. And I remember getting ready. I put on the one sport jacket that I had. I put on a nice shirt. And I was getting ready to walk out the door. And I opened the door to go outside of the house to get into the car. And I couldn't step outside of the house. I remember just looking out the door, looking at the car, and thinking, if I go to this interview, I'm going to get this job. I just knew in my mind, I had built the confidence. I was like, I'm going to be able to enroll whoever's interviewing me, that I am the person for this job. I will do whatever it takes, attitude. I was just like, I know myself. And that terrified me because I realized it wasn't the vision I had for my life. I didn't want to go work some sports marketing job. Not that it's a bad thing. That's just not what my vision was. And I realized at that moment, I needed to get super clear on what the vision was and then take different actions towards making it come true. That moment was a deciding moment of okay, now I'm going to get kicked out soon, so I have to figure out a way to make money. How do I do that? If I'm not going to go get a job, what am I going to do? And that kind of got me down a path of learning about online marketing and running these live networking events and writing a book and kind of just using the skills I had to make money around that.
So did you end up just canceling the interview and just not going?
I didn't even tell them. I just didn't show up. And I didn't email them back. I just didn't show up, which is probably not the right thing to do. But I remember I was just like, I can't do this. But here's what it did. It springboarded me into action the other way.
Right.
So if I wasn't going to go get a job, I became clear that I was like, I'm not going to get a job.
Wow, that's so crazy that you just had that moment and then just move forward the other direction. I want to talk to you about your podcast. It's my favorite podcast out there.
Thank you.
And on the School of Greatness, you have over 660 episodes and over 40 million downloads since you launched.
70 million now.
Oh, is it 70 million? Oh my goodness. Since you launched in 2013, and you have interviewed everybody, Tony Robbins, Mike Rowe, Larry King. And I just want to know if there is an underlying thing for achieving greatness that stands out to you from all of these interviews.
There is. There's a number of different principles that all these great individuals have. I would say, I'll just speak about two of them. One is they're very clear on their vision. They know exactly what they want, why they want it, and the direction they're headed for their life. And that clarity of vision becomes very enrolling for people around them because they're so certain of what they want. And it's greater than just themselves. It's for a bigger part of the world. There's really 8 key principles that I discovered from all these individuals, but that's the first one. And the last one,
which is a really great podcast, by the way, that people can listen to.
Yeah. And the last one, the last key principle is that they live a life of service. You know, they pursue their dreams, but in that pursuit, they're making an impact on the people around them to the best of their ability. And that's what I love, you know, and it can be on their immediate family and their community. It can be, you know, for a greater cause in the world. It can be for their city. It doesn't have to be like curing cancer or something for all of the world, but they're constantly trying to improve the lives around them. And I think that's a special quality.
Well, in your book on page 33, and this is from the School of Greatness, you say, or I think this is the School of Greatness, to be good at something requires talent, vision, and action. Greatness is what remains when the talent and the vision meet adversity and persist in the face of it. I love that. And I would love for you to share with me your favorite definition, because you always ask your guests what their definition of greatness. What would be your definition of greatness?
Yeah, for me, it's discovering the unique gifts that you're born with. And in that discovery, pursuing your dreams. And during that pursuit, making the maximum impact on the people around you. When we learn about the things that are unique to us and we cultivate those gifts and pursue something that we are passionate about and love, and we make an impact on people, I don't know what else there really is to do. I mean, that's what it is. It's like, figure out who you are, be the best you can be at the thing that you like to do, and make other people smile along the way.
I want to talk to you about your book, The School of Greatness, and the book tour that you did. You were kind of on top of the world, Lewis. You were a New York Times bestselling author. You were having all of this success, but on the tour, you found yourself depressed and lonely with no real connections, and you had reached success, but you felt unfulfilled. Compare that to your book tour this year with The Mask of Masculinity.
You know, I was really focused on the result of being, you know, a bestseller, of selling out this tour, of doing these things. And I was focused on that as opposed to the process and everything else. And I think at the end of it, I achieved everything that I was focused on. And I realized like something was missing. Like I was still a little unfulfilled. And so this time around, it was much more about not focusing on the results and focusing on every moment and just making the most of the moments. It's all learning. It's all growth. It's all discovery of different things. It's interesting because, you know, I focused on being a New York Times bestseller the first time around, and I hit it, but I wasn't 100% fulfilled. I focused on giving my best for the second book, and I didn't hit the New York Times bestseller list, but I still feel fulfilled from the work and the process.
Will you talk about kind of letting go of the need for approval? Whose approval were you trying to get?
I mean, everyone's probably, you know, the world, my industry, peers, you know, family. And when we try to seek the approval of other people, we're a lot harder on ourselves, and we're a lot more insecure and less confident. But when we say, you know what, it's not about me. It's about me trying to give the best I can to others and trying to be the highest level of service, whether I'm on stage giving a speech or doing a book tour or a podcast. When we don't try to be perfect and get everyone's approval, that's when we can actually step into our greater self and make a bigger impact. And when we focus on serving our audience or serving the people around us as opposed to being the most liked it's just a lot less pressure as well.
Were there any miracles, Lewis, involved in the writing of The Mask of Masculinity?
In the writing or in the whole process since it came out?
Yeah, I just think it's this amazing message that is such a perfect timing to help all of these men. It's amazing.
The timing of it has been a miracle itself, because I wasn't expecting when to come out that it was going to be the height of the Me Too and Time's Up movements, and that all of this attention would be on this topic. So the fact that I had a feeling, because I started writing it 2 years before it came out, and I was just like, you know what? Men are hurting and so are women. And men don't have the tools to understand how to process emotions. And they feel like it's not masculine to do that. And look at all these mass shootings and racial marches and sexual abuse and domestic violence. Like, the common denominator is men who don't know how to express themselves in healthier ways. And so I said, okay, this is something, I've dealt in my own internal destruction of feelings of what it means to be masculine, and I'm a man in today's society. And so I wanted to dive in deeper. And just writing the book in general helped me heal and process more things that I was already working on for myself. But since the book's coming out, it's been an unbelievable miracle. I mean, just today I got an email from a guy who said it saved his life. He was wanting to commit suicide, and he started reading the book and realized all the things he was attached to with these masks for his own life. And it made a positive impact on him. I went and did a workshop about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago at a maximum security prison here in LA. And I was in a room for 5-6 hours with 30 murderers. And all of them had read the book and talked about how those masks were exactly what got them into prison in the first place. Realizing the mistakes they made, they were all proving to become better men. And for me, that's a beautiful miracle.
Women are hiding behind these masks too. So it's something that everyone needs to read, because so many of us haven't learned how to feel our feelings. We've shoved them down for so long. And this is a book that teaches you about how to acknowledge those feelings, and it's really incredible. So I recommend everyone listening to buy the book.
Thank you.
Lewis, you are a master at teaching people how to dream big. And I know that you had a dream of hip bumping Ellen on the Ellen show, and that dream came about. Tell us how that happened.
When we think about things long enough and we work really hard to manifest them and then they come true, it's just a fun moment, and it came to fruition because, honestly, of Scooter Braun, who's become a friend of mine over the years, and he's been on my podcast, and he wanted to work on some projects together. And he was like, I got to connect you to Ellen. Let's get you on the Ellen show. So he made an introduction to Ellen and her team, meeting with them and sharing with them my vision and my story. Thankfully they were bought in enough about me and wanted to interview me, and it was a beautiful experience. It's funny because sometimes we build stuff up in our minds. For years I was like, it'd be interesting to be on this show, and it was like I couldn't get the nerves away that morning. I was like worried about how I was going to look and needing this approval from the audience and Ellen's team and Ellen and the live studio audience and everything. And that's right before I went on, about 30 minutes before. I said, you know what? Who cares if I mess up? Who cares if I forget something? I need to focus out, focus on the audience, focus on giving good energy, focus on doing my best. And that's all I can do. And when I shifted to focusing out as opposed to focusing on me, that's when it became a lot easier.
After that first episode, Ellen asked her viewers to send in an email if they wanted your help. And you went back on the show. A woman was on the show, and you have been coaching her. Can you give us an update on her story?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was coaching her for a few months, and she did really well. She launched an online fitness program and got a bunch of clients. But she kind of went back into a fear mentality after a while and stopped checking in and stopped taking the actions. And, she's got 3 kids, but she was able to break through on some things. And I haven't checked in with her in a while because she stopped checking in with me. So I hope she's doing well and, continuing on her journey.
Lewis, what would you like your legacy to be?
For me, it's really, I want people to think about me or the idea of me and know that I cared deeply for humanity and was always looking for ways to use my gifts and my energy to make the biggest impact. And I really just want to be a symbol of inspiration for people, whether I'm alive or dead, to remind people of what's possible for them, for their lives, remind people that their dreams matter, that they matter, and that people are watching. People are watching their example. People are watching their moves, their energy, their words. Just try to be better every single day.
Well, Louis, when you close out your podcast, you always ask your guests, I think it's 3 things that you would want people to know from your work. What would that be for you?
Yeah, it's the 3 truths. I ask people about
yes.
what that 3 truths would be if this was the only thing they could share. I think the first thing is your dreams matter. And without a dream, life is a lot less rewarding and fulfilling. So pursue your dreams. The second thing is health. Without your health, it's hard to pursue your dreams and leave a legacy and experience the fruit of life. So be very mindful of your health and make it the first priority over everything else. Because if you're not healthy, you can't be there for other people. And the third thing would be to live a life of service. In your pursuit of your dreams, do the best to be there for your friends, your family, and then if you can, more people after that. That's a great life.
I have a question for you from one of our Miracle Kids.
Yeah.
You met him about 1.5 years ago, and Isaiah was born without an air passage or a jaw, didn't have oxygen for 15 minutes, and doctors said he'd be a vegetable. Today, he's inspiring the world with his voice by writing rap songs and having rapper Trap House be his physical voice. Isaiah receives so much hate on a daily basis, and he wanted me to ask you how you deal with the negativity.
Yeah, I really just focus on the positivity of things that the people who are positive, and I surround myself with positivity. So if anyone says anything negative online, I just try to forget it as quickly as possible, move on as quickly as possible and not fixate on it and just focus on all the good that I am doing. It's hard because as individuals, we want to, we'll get 1,000 great responses and 1 negative response and we focus on negative. But it's a practice. You got to train yourself to really focus on all the good in your life as opposed to negative.
Well, Louis, before we end, I just have a couple quick fire questions for you. If you could go to lunch with anyone tomorrow, who would it be?
I'd say Will Smith or The Rock.
I like it. If you could have anyone on your podcast next week, who would it be?
One of those.
Okay.
Same day.
And if your life were a movie title, what would it be?
The Inspiring Underdog.
I love that. And the final question, Louis, I ask this to all of our guests. If there were 3 miracles that you could create in the world today, what would that look like for you?
A cure for any disease or health challenge. Because I feel like it's the thing that holds so many people back is physical health. Second would be deeper compassion, that the people are able to have a deeper compassion for themselves and others, so that there's a lot more love and understanding as opposed to conflict. So the third thing would be that kids are trained just as much with emotional well-being and mental well-being tools as they are as technical class skills.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day and they're like, I learned how to do calculus, but I never learned any life skills. And when have I ever used calculus? So, well, Louis, thank you so much for your time today. I just want to thank you and acknowledge you for all the miracles that you are creating in the world today. Your podcast has helped me so much. It's helped so many millions of people in the world. You're just a miracle maker. You're a miracle worker. And I know that you live your life in the service of others. And it's an honor to have you on the podcast and just to call you my friend. So thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
The month of August is RE/MAX Month of Miracles, a month-long celebration of all the amazing things RE/MAX does to help kids in local communities throughout the U.S. and Canada. Over the last 25 years, RE/MAX offices and agents have raised more than $157 million for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. If you're planning on buying or selling a home soon, consider working with a RE/MAX Miracle agent who supports your local Children's Miracle Network hospital. Visit RE/MAX.com to find your Miracle agent or office today.